Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. It's the 14th day of the year, and here we are, still talking about cold and snow. There's a lot of ground to cover today, but before we dive into the winter weather, I want to start with something really serious happening on the West Coast. If you've been keeping up with the news, you probably already know about the devastating fires out there. Things are tough, and unfortunately, they're about to get even tougher over the next few days. Let's break it down. We've got a new weather system dropping down from the Pacific Northwest, and it's creating a large true that's going to change the wind patterns. This shift is going to bring intense Santa Ana winds, and those winds are notorious for making bad fire conditions even worse. If you're in Southern California or have loved ones in the area, pay close attention because this week is shaping up to be dangerous. Reus are coming in strong from the northeast, pushing south and west. They're expected to gust between 50 and 70 mpf. On top of that, the air is going to be incredibly dry with humidity levels dropping to around 10. On this combination of strong winds, dry air, and an already parched landscape is basically the perfect storm for wildfires. We're talking about a high risk of rapid fire spread from the Ventura Valley all the way down to the San Bernardino Mountain. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. And it doesn't stop there. The critical fire outlook stretches across Los Angeles, Long Beach, Riverside, San Diego, you name it. Today is just the start. The conditions will remain critical on Wednesday and possibly even Thursday. This prolonged event means that any spark, no matter how small, could turn into a significant fire. If you're in these areas, please have an evacuation plan ready. It's always better to be prepared and not need it than to scramble in an emergency. Now, the good news is that some of the fires from last week are more under control. That's a relief, but it doesn't mean we're out of the woods. If another fire starts tonight or tomorrow, we could see rapid spread again. It's going to be a tough week. And my thoughts are with everyone impacted. Stay safe, stay alert, and don't hesitate to leave if authorities say it's time. All right, now let's shift gears and talk about what's happening across the rest of the country. While the fires are a localized issue, the rest of us are bracing for something big, major strong pattern that's going to bring some of the coldest air we've seen in years. Here's what's going on. Passive trough is setting up across the U.S., and it's going to funnel frigid Arctic air into the central and eastern parts of the country. This isn't just a typical cold snap. Talk about prolonged below average temperatures that could last well into the end of January. Let's start with the short term. There's a brief break in the cold where warmer air is going to try to sneak into the central U.S., parts of the Pacific Northwest, and even Western Canada. Some areas might see temperatures that are 20 to 30 degrees above average, but don't get too comfortable. It won't last long. Once the cold air dives south, it's going to stick around. GFS and Ensemble models are showing incredible consistency here. This isn't just one model run. It's an average of many runs, all pointing to the same conclusion. Extremely cold air is on the way. Between January 19th and 24th, most of the U.S. will be feeling the chill. Only Maine, southern Florida, Alaska, and Hawaii will escape this cold wave. Everyone else, get ready. I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds a little scary, but don't worry. The key here is preparation, not panic. We've had similar patterns in the past, and while this one is intense, it's nothing we can't handle. If you're in Texas or the Southeast, start thinking about power grid issues. I don't think this will be a repeat of 2021, but it's always better to be cautious. Make sure you've got a backup plan for heating and power just in case. Let's talk snow. Whenever we get set up like this, snowstorms are almost guaranteed. The Climate Prediction Center has already highlighted a 20/40 chance of heavy snow for parts of the U.S. between January 18th and 24th. While it's too early to pinpoint specific storms, the overall pattern is setting up to deliver significant snow events, especially for the Northeast. Here's that. You're going to hear a lot of noise on social media about historic blizzards or comparisons to past storms like the blizzard of 77 or the superstorm of 93. Don't buy into the hype just yet. Any forecast more than 5 days out is speculative at best. Once we're closer, around 4 or 5 days from a storm, we'll have a much clearer picture. That's when you'll hear from me with detailed updates. For now, just know that this is going to be a snowy, stormy January. If you're in places like Iowa or South Dakota that haven't seen much snow yet, hang tight, your time might still come. but the rest of January looks promising for snow lovers in many areas. Out west, things are fairly quiet, but there's a different kind of weather problem happening near Los Angeles. There are still several wildfires ongoing, and unfortunately, conditions are primed for those fires to continue over the next couple of days. The weather is going to stay dry and windy, which is not good for fire containment. The silver lining, though, is that by the end of the week, things will start to change. We'll see an increase in moisture and a decrease in winds, which should make conditions less favorable for fires. So, fingers crossed by the weekend, these fires will finally be under control. Now back to the cold front. As we look ahead, a big shift is coming in the weather pattern, and it all comes down to the jet stream. If you're unfamiliar with it, the jet stream is the upper level wind pattern that steers weather systems around the globe. Right now, we've got a fairly flat jet stream with northerly flow over the Pacific Northwest in Canada. This is bringing in a small shot of cold air into the Midwest and Ohio Valley over the next few days. But for the most part, we're seeing a westerly flow across the East Coast and Southeast, which is actually going to bring some warmer temperatures into these areas by the middle of the week. In fact, the temperatures are going to be above average for a lot of the Midwest and Ohio Valley as we get into Thursday and Friday. It's not something we've seen much of this month since many areas east of the Rockies have been dealing with below average temperatures for most of January. But things are about to change as we head into the weekend. By Saturday, that's when things really take a turn. The polar jet stream, which has been hanging out far to the north over Canada, is going to dip southward. This is the key to the Arctic blast that's about to make its way into the U.S. A jet stream will create a northerly flow that's going to bring some seriously cold air into the Great Plains, Midwest, and Ohio Valley. We're talking temperatures that could plummet well below average, and it's going to stick around for several days. In fact, some models are suggesting that temperatures in the northern plains could drop to as low as 22, 25 F. And with the wind chills, it could feel like 60 def in places like North Dakota. It's going to be absolutely brutal. As we head into Sunday and Monday, this Arctic air will continue its southward march, spreading into the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and Northeast. Expect to see some of the coldest weather we've seen all season in these areas, with the potential for record-breaking temperatures. On this, if you're in the northern plains, you could be looking at sub-zero temperatures by Monday morning, with many areas in the Midwest and Ohio Valley also falling below 0 def. The coldest of the cold is still several days out, but models have been consistent in showing this intense cold moving in, so it's looking pretty likely that we'll be seeing some of the coldest weather of the season next week. The good news, this cold air won't last forever. By Wednesday or Thursday, we should start to see a little bit of a warm up. But before that happens, we're going to deal with a pretty intense Arctic blast for a few days. So definitely prepare for that. But that's not the only thing we need to worry about. For all this cold air moving in, there's a good chance we're going to see at least one winter storm. In fact, there's growing confidence that we could see a storm develop in the Midwest and Ohio Valley this weekend. But it's still a bit early to nail down exact details, but we could see light to moderate snow across these regions, with pockets of heavier snow in some places. By late Saturday night into Sunday, the snow will spread eastward into the Northeast and Great Lakes, where several inches of snow are possible. Now, if we get lucky and moisture comes in from both the Gulf and the Pacific, we might even see a second winter storm form, but this is still up in the air. The confidence in this scenario is relatively low right now, but it's something we'll be keeping an eye on over the next few days. The potential is there, so it's worth watching. Let's talk snow totals for a moment. Again, it's early to get into specifics, but we're looking at the possibility of anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of snow. In some areas, of course, pockets of heavier snow could push those totals even higher. And if that second round of snow forms, we might see additional snow accumulation, potentially doubling the snow totals from the first storm. One thing's for sure, snow or no snow, this Arctic blast is going to be intense. And it's not just about how cold it's going to get. The wind chills are going to make it feel much colder, with some areas in the northern plains and Midwest potentially feeling like 30 to 40 def. And parts of Canada could see wind chills down to 60 def. So definitely make sure you're staying weather aware, especially if you're in these areas. Before I wrap up, I want to touch on one more thing. The chance of snow along the Gulf Coast or East Coast. Right now, it's a long shot, but there's a small chance we could see snow as far south as the Carolinas. The models aren't fully in agreement on this yet. So I'm not getting too excited, but we could see a few inches of snow in these areas if the conditions align. It's still way too early to predict, but I'll keep you posted as the situation develops. All right. So that's the latest on the Arctic blast and the potential for winter storms. It's going to be a wild ride, so make sure you stay tuned to the channel for updates. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any of the latest weather alert. I'll keep you updated on everything you need to know, from how cold it's going to get to how much snow we might see. And I'll be here with more updates as we get closer to the weekend. Stay safe, stay warm, and I'll see you in the next video.